The complete list of Hindu gods. Version 1. Primordial and cosmic principles. Brahman. A cosmic principle from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, absolute reality. Secondary domain, source of existence. Pronounced, Brahman. Prakriti. A cosmic principle from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, primordial matter. Secondary domain, nature. Pronounced, Prakriti. Purusha. A cosmic principle from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, cosmic consciousness. Secondary domain, observer principle. Pronounced, Purushu. Kala. A cosmic force from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, time. Secondary domain, destruction. Pronounced, Kala. Maya. A cosmic force from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, illusion. Secondary domain, veiling of reality. Pronounced, Maya. The Trimurti Brahma. A god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, creation. Secondary domain, knowledge. Pronounced, Brahma. Vishnu. A god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, preservation. Secondary domain, cosmic order. Pronounced, Vishnu. Shiva. A god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, destruction. Secondary domain, transformation. Pronounced, Shivu. The divine feminine Adi Shakti. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, divine power. Secondary domain, creation. Pronounced, Adi Shakti. Parvati. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, balance. Secondary domain, devotion. Pronounced, Parvati. Durga. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, protection. Secondary domain, war. Pronounced, Durga. Kali. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, time. Secondary domain, ego dissolution. Pronounced, Kali. Lakshmi. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, prosperity. Secondary domain, order. Pronounced, Lakshmi. Saraswati. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, knowledge. Secondary domain, sound and speech. Pronounced, Saraswati. Mahadevi. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, supreme feminine principle. Secondary domain, all domains. Mahavidya's Tara. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, guidance. Secondary domain, protection. Pronounced, Tara. Tripura Sundari. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, beauty. Secondary domain, cosmic order. Pronounced, Tripur Sundari. Bhuvaneshwari. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, space. Secondary domain, world manifestation. Pronounced, Bhuvaneshwari. Chinnamaster. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, sacrifice. Secondary domain, transformation. Pronounced, Chinnamaster. Bhairavi. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, fierce power. Secondary domain, discipline. Pronounced, Bhyravi. Dhumavati. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, void. Secondary domain, loss and absence. Pronounced, Dhumavati. Bagalamukhi. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, stillness. Secondary domain, suppression of power. Pronounced, Bagalamukhi. Matangi. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, inner knowledge. Secondary domain, speech. Pronounced, Matangi. Kamala. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, prosperity. Secondary domain, fulfillment. Pronounced, Karamala. Major devas and cosmic forces. Indra. A god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, storms. Secondary domain, kingship. Pronounced, Indru. Agni. A god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, fire. Secondary domain, sacrifice. Pronounced, Eugene. Surya, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, the sun. Secondary domain, truth. Pronounced, Soaya. Varuna, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, cosmic law. Secondary domain, oceans. Pronounced, Varuna. Vayu, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, wind. Secondary domain, life force. Pronounced, Vayo. Soma, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, sacred intoxication. Secondary domain, immortality. Pronounced, Soma. Yama, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, death. Secondary domain, judgment. Pronounced, Yama. Avatars of Vishnu Matsya, an avatar of Vishnu. Primary domain, preservation. Secondary domain, flood survival. Pronounced, Matsya. Kurma, an avatar of Vishnu. Primary domain, balance. Secondary domain, stability. Pronounced, Korma. Varaha, an avatar of Vishnu. Primary domain, earth rescue. Secondary domain, strength. Pronounced, Varaha. Narasimha, an avatar of Vishnu. Primary domain, divine justice. Secondary domain, wrath. Pronounced, Narasimha. Vamana, an avatar of Vishnu. Primary domain, cosmic order. Secondary domain, humility. Pronounced, Varamana. Parashurama, an avatar of Vishnu. Primary domain, war. Secondary domain, purification. Pronounced, Parashurama. Rama, an avatar of Vishnu. Primary domain, Dharma. Secondary domain, kingship. Pronounced, Rama. Krishna, an avatar of Vishnu. Primary domain, strategy. Secondary domain, devotion. Pronounced, Krishna. Buddha, an avatar of Vishnu. Primary domain, enlightenment. Secondary domain, detachment. Pronounced, Buddha. Kalki, an avatar of Vishnu. Primary domain, end of the cosmic cycle. Secondary domain, restoration. Pronounced, Kalki. This section covers the operational deities of the Hindu tradition. These gods govern karma, time, wealth, ritual order, discipline, craft, and planetary influence. They form the functional systems that keep the cosmos running. Secondary devas and planetary forces. Shani, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, karma. Secondary domain, discipline and consequence. Pronounced, Shane. Chandra, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, the moon. Secondary domain, cycles and the mind. Pronounced, Chandru. Kubera, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, wealth. Secondary domain, guardianship of treasure. Pronounced, Kubera. Brihaspati, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, wisdom. Secondary domain, sacred speech. Pronounced, Brihaspati. Buddha, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, intellect. Secondary domain, communication. Pronounced, Buddha. Mangala, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, aggression. Secondary domain, conflict and drive. Pronounced, Mangulu. Shukra, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, desire. Secondary domain, pleasure and diplomacy. Pronounced, Shukru. Solar, ritual, and moral order god. Savita, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, solar impulse. Secondary domain, life activation. Pronounced, Suvitr Pushan, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, pathways. Secondary domain, protection of travelers. Pronounced, Pushan. Mitra, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, contracts. Secondary domain, friendship and alliance. pronounced Mitru. Aryaman, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, social order. Secondary domain, hospitality. Pronounced Aryaman. Bhaga, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, fortune. Secondary domain, equitable distribution. Pronounced Bhagu. Craft, creation, and sustenance. Vishvakarma, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, craft. Secondary domain, divine construction. Pronounced Vishvukarma. Tvasta, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, shaping. Secondary domain, form and design. Pronounced Tuvasta. Dhanvantari, a god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, medicine. Secondary domain, healing. Pronounced Dhanvantari. Annapurna, a goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, nourishment. Secondary domain, sustenance. Pronounced Annapurna. Time, death, and cosmic enforcement. Mahakala, a manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, time. Secondary domain, annihilation. Pronounced Mahakalu. Nilakantha, a manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, poison absorption. Secondary domain, sacrifice. Pronounced Nilukantha. Kala Bhairava, a manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, temporal guardianship. Secondary domain, boundary enforcement. Pronounced Kala Bhyravu. Shadow and liminal forces. Rahu, a shadow entity from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, eclipses. Secondary domain, obsession. Pronounced Rahu. Ketu, a shadow entity from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, liberation. Secondary domain, disruption of attachment. Pronounced Ketu. Directional and protective forces. Lokapalas, a group deity from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, guardianship of directions. Secondary domain, cosmic balance. Pronounced Lokapalas. Dikpalas, a group deity from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, spatial order. Secondary domain, boundary protection. Pronounced Dikpalas. This section covers manifestations and power forms within the Hindu tradition. These entities represent intensified states of force, balance, destruction, protection, and cosmic expression. They are not separate gods, but functional expressions of divine power. Shiva manifestations. Bhairava, a manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, destruction. Secondary domain, protection of sacred space. Pronounced Bhyravu. Nataraja, a manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, cosmic dance. Secondary domain, time and rhythm. Pronounced Nataraju. Ardhanarishvara, a manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, unity. Secondary domain, gender balance. Pronounced Ardhanarishvaru. Virabhadra, a manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, wrath. Secondary domain, divine retribution. Pronounced Virabhudru. Sharaba, a manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, containment of power. Secondary domain, feral force control. Pronounced Sharabu. Dakshinamurti, a manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, wisdom transmission. Secondary domain, silent teaching. Pronounced Dakshinamurti. Devi manifestations beyond the Mahavidyas. Gauri, a goddess manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, purity. Secondary domain, fertility. Pronounced Gauri. Uma, a goddess manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, ascetic power. Secondary domain, devotion. Pronounced Omr. Annapurna Devi, a goddess manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, nourishment. Secondary domain, sustenance. Pronounced Annapurna Devi. Chamunda. A goddess manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, destruction. Secondary domain, warfare. Pronounced, Chamunda. Varahi. A goddess manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, protection. Secondary domain, strategic force. Pronounced, Vurahi. Shitala. A goddess manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, disease. Secondary domain, healing. Pronounced, Shitala. Manasa. A goddess manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, serpents. Secondary domain, poison healing. Pronounced, Manasa. Cosmic guardians and boundary powers. Skanda. A god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, war. Secondary domain, leadership. Pronounced, Skanda. Ganesha. A god from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, obstacle removal. Secondary domain, beginnings. Pronounced, Guneshu. Nandi. A divine being from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, guardianship. Secondary domain, devotion. Pronounced, Nandi. Garuda. A divine being from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, the sky. Secondary domain, protection. Pronounced, Guruda. Serpent and subterranean powers. Shisha. A serpent being from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, cosmic support. Secondary domain, infinity. Pronounced, Sheshu. Vasuki. A serpent being from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, churning force. Secondary domain, binding power. Pronounced, Vasuki. Directional and protective forces. Ashta Dikpalas. A group manifestation from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, directional guardianship. Secondary domain, spatial balance. Pronounced, Ashtu Dikpalas. This section covers sages, sacred rivers, spirit classes, and divinized beings within the Hindu tradition. These entities transmit knowledge, sustain life, guard thresholds, and populate the unseen layers of the cosmos. Sages and knowledge bearers. Narada. A sage from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, communication. Secondary domain, instigation and transmission. Pronounced, Narada. Vyasa. A sage from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, preservation of knowledge. Secondary domain, compilation of sacred texts. Pronounced, Vyasu. Valmiki. A sage from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, epic authorship. Secondary domain, poetic inspiration. Pronounced, Valmiki. Agastya. A sage from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, balance. Secondary domain, southward expansion of culture. Pronounced, Agastyayu. Markandeya. A sage from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, devotion. Secondary domain, immortality. Pronounced, Markandeya. Saptarishi. A group of sages from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, cosmic order. Secondary domain, wisdom transmission. Pronounced, Saptarishi. Sacred rivers and life forces. Ganga. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, purification. Secondary domain, sacred river. Pronounced, Ganga. Yamuna. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, life sustenance. Secondary domain, sacred river. Pronounced, Yamuna. Saraswati river. A goddess from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, wisdom. Secondary domain, sacred flow. Pronounced, Suruswati. Epic era divinized figures. Hanuman. A heroic deity from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, devotion. Secondary domain, strength. Pronounced, Hanuman. Sita. A goddess consort from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, devotion. Secondary domain, purity. Pronounced, Sita. Radha. A goddess consort from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, divine love. Secondary domain, devotion. pronounced Radha. Rukmini, a goddess consort from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, prosperity. Secondary domain, sacred union. Pronounced Rukmine. Draupadi, a goddess consort from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, justice. Secondary domain, resilience. Pronounced Draupadi. Spirit classes and nature beings. Yakshas, a spirit class from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, natural wealth. Secondary domain, guardianship. Pronounced Yukshus. Gandharvas, a spirit class from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, music. Secondary domain, inspiration. Pronounced Gandharvas. Apsaras, a spirit class from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, grace. Secondary domain, seduction. Pronounced Apsurus. Rakshasas, a being class from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, chaos. Secondary domain, opposition. Pronounced Rukshusus. Asuras, a being class from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, ambition. Secondary domain, power struggle. Pronounced Asarus. Nagas, a being class from the Hindu tradition. Primary domain, serpent wisdom. Secondary domain, subterranean realms. Pronounced Nagas.